Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to our Parsha class. I'm Rabbi Nicole Guzik with Sinai Temple, and I'm happy to give just a little teaching about Ki Teitzei. I like to give a brief synopsis from Chabad.org. So this is Ki Teitzei in a nutshell, and then I'll give you my own insights. Um, so here we go. First of all, what's exciting about this Parsha is that there are 74 of the Torah's 613 commandments embedded in this Parsha. Some of these laws include inheritance rights of the firstborn. They talk about the wayward and rebellious son, dignity of the deceased, returning a lost object, which we'll speak about more, sending away the mother bird before taking her young. And then we'll speak about this too, this idea of a fence around someone's home. Um, let's see. We also learn about what it means to return an escaped slave, how to pay a worker on time. We learn about the laws of divorce. Um, the list goes on and on about the various kinds of mitzvot that are in this parsha. And then the end of the Torah portion concludes with this responsibility, this obligation to remember Amalek, to remember what Amalek did to the Israelites on the road, on the way out of Egypt. So that's the summary of the Torah portion. But now I want to share a little bit of the major themes. Um, One of the ways I want us to read Ki Teitzei is instead of exactly what I just did, which is kind of listing some of that 74 mitzvot, listing a few of them, instead of looking at each mitzvah separately as one singular unit, I want us to try to ask the following. Using those 74 mitzvot, we're not going to look at each one, but using them in totality, what do we think the Torah was trying to say in terms of the kind of human being the Torah wants us to be? Um, like I said, I see some general themes as to the ways that the Torah wants us to live today. So here's three themes I want us to explore together over the next, 15, 20 minutes or so. The first is the idea, and I spoke about this a little bit in my sermon a few weeks ago for Re'eh. So if you want to look back on YouTube and take a look at it, it's fine. But the first is the idea of not looking away. The second theme is how do you prevent a fall before it happens? And the third is what do we do when we have power and someone else is vulnerable? And then I think at the very end, when we speak about Amalek, we'll have a better understanding of why these three themes matter so much. So don't look away. I mentioned, as I said to you before, I spoke about this a few weeks ago, but the idea of returning a lost object, that when you see your neighbor's animal wandering away, what the Torah says is that you have to return it. And then the phrase that has always caught my attention year after year when I read this parsha, lo tuchal lehitalem. You cannot hide yourself, meaning that you shouldn't ignore the situation and don't hide yourself from what's happening in front of you. So you can't just look away. And this is something, because we're human beings, we do often. We might see something, we might see somebody who needs help, and we grow uncomfortable in the looking. Or we say to ourselves, someone else will take care of it. I'm sure they'll be fine. I don't want to get involved. I'm late. I have something to do. It's not my responsibility. Um, and you can list a number of different examples. Maybe someone dropped something. Maybe you see a car accident on the side of the road. Maybe there's an elderly person who's struggling with opening the door. Maybe it's even something um, where you're at a social event and you see someone standing alone. Or maybe it's bigger than that. I can't help but think about the various celebrities who have gone through mental health crises that are all over the news lately, who have really suffered, and have, as we've seen, just led to terrible, horrible paths. And so maybe we notice that a friend's demeanor has changed, or we notice someone who's going through a hard time. Um, and something inside of us says to ourselves, there's a shift. Something's different. I see something in them, and we have a choice to make. We might say to ourselves, I think I should call them, but then something, we get busy and we say, I'll do it tomorrow. But Ki Teitzei reminds us that we might not have tomorrow, that tomorrow might be too late for you or for them. So don't ignore that first voice so quickly. Um, I mentioned this in the sermon as well. It's not about fixing someone's life or fixing their problems, but the mitzvah is noticing them, doing the small thing, making the call, sending the text, returning the lost object, opening the door, inviting someone to sit next to you, just showing up matters. Um, and we are all guilty of forgetting. We are all guilty of seeing the person and saying to ourselves, I promise, I know I will get to them. And then we drop. Um, we just we drop the call, we drop the text message, we forget to return the lost object. But in this season of tshuva, the season of return, I want to say to us, even though we may disappoint others, I don't think it's ever too late to try and try again. Even if we've dropped that ball, it's not too late to pick it back up and try again. So that first main message of Ki Teitzei is in returning a lost object, don't look away. Whether it's someone in your family or a friend or in our community, don't look away. Because once we've seen another human being, then we've encountered some kind of responsibility for each other. Okay, now building a fence before someone falls. It's one of my favorite mitzvot, and it's so funny. Because it's something that I think each and every one of us has probably done without realizing it. So what the Torah tells us is that when we build a new home, we're supposed to put kind of a railing around our roof because remember, where the roof was in the ancient world, this was like a living space. People spent time on them. I don't think it's so different than people spending time, whether it's on the roof or on their balcony. We have a responsibility to make these living spaces safe. I think of something similarly when the rule of putting a fence around your pool. When we moved into our new home, our pool already it came with a pool and it already had an electric cover, but I was so nervous about my own children and other people's children, potential or animals wandering into our backyard that I immediately, before moving into that home, said, I'm not going to move into that home until a fence is built around the pool. I think it's essentially the same idea. That's the literal sense, but what does it mean metaphorically? The idea is that if we can, if we can, we should try to put up a fence before someone falls. Now, what exactly does that mean? Um, I'll give you a contemporary example. As some of you know, I often do relationship counseling. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, working towards licensure, hopefully very, very soon. And couples will come to me and they'll say, it feels like we're not yet in crisis. Um, do we really need counseling? And to me, it points to this Parsha. Before you get to crisis mode, what does it look like to put a fence around your marriage? What does it look like to invest time so that the foundation of your marriage is solid? Um, in other words, what can we put into place in our relationships today that might prevent a fall tomorrow? I gave the example of couples counseling, but it's also the idea of getting your emergency bag ready before the earthquake or getting your retirement fund ready before deciding you don't want to work anymore, putting the phone down while you're driving, just so many different ideas that are both literally about your safety, putting up the smoke detector, but also kind of metaphorical ideas of understanding each other's vulnerability and how we can, strengthen each other's souls so that we have the strongest of foundations as we walk through this world. Okay, the third idea, our power. If you read through Ki Teitzei, there is just so many references to the vulnerable. We see a commandment about paying a worker on time. Why? Because people depend on their wages, and there's a certain sense of empathy that we must have. One person might think, the employer might think, what's the difference if I pay someone this week or next week? But the Torah is trying to remind us, no, there's a major difference. People are waiting for their paychecks. They need groceries and they might have to pay their rent. They have family depending on them. But this idea comes up over and over again. How do you treat someone who owes you money? How do you treat a worker? How do you treat someone whose property is lost? How do you treat someone who can't advocate for themselves? How do you treat an animal that works for you? So what's the overarching theme? How do you act as a human being when you know you hold a certain sense of power? And in a way, we all hold various degrees of power. Maybe you're a parent, an employer, a teacher, a leader. Maybe you're the person in the family whom everyone calls, when something goes wrong. And so the question that the Torah is asking us in a way not to rely upon is not what am I supposed to do? What am I allowed to do with my power? Or what does this person need from me? The question should be almost related to the first. Do I see the person before me? And do I understand the ways that my power impacts this person? So do I see the person before me? And do I understand the ways that my power impacts this person? Coming towards the end of the Parsha, okay, now we have this idea of Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you on the road when you left Egypt, where Amalek attacked the Israelites. But it wasn't just an enemy attacking another enemy. But what Amalek would do is Amalek would go after the stragglers that were left behind. He would go after the vulnerable, the tired, the weak. And now all of a sudden, these 74 mitzvot in Ki Teitzei, I think, make a lot of sense. Because when Amalek encounters someone who's vulnerable, Amalek sees opportunity. But when the Torah sees vulnerability, the Torah wants us to gain a sense of responsibility. Someone falls behind in this world, Amalek would say, how can I take advantage of this? But what does the Torah want us to do? The Torah wants us to see that person and bring them back in. There are many ways that we see kind of the idea of Amalek working through this world. Instead of taking advantage of the weak or taking advantage of the people who are not seen in this world, the Torah is insisting that each and every one of us have a responsibility not to ignore them, but to bring them closer. So here's the questions I want us to leave with this morning. Number one, who am I being asked to notice? Who in my life have I overlooked? And who needs a second glance? So you might already know this answer, or maybe you haven't really thought about it, but it's the perfect season, the perfect time to dig deep. And don't worry about having the exact perfect words, but text them or call them and just say, I'm thinking about you. Second, what kind of railing do I need to build? It might be a literal railing. Look around your home and see what needs kind of a sense of protection, or looking around your life and kind of safeguarding the areas that, down the line, might cause a bit of stress, but you really are looking to fortify before something goes wrong. So maybe there's a conversation in a relationship you've been avoiding. Maybe there's a boundary that you might need to establish before things go any further. Something in your family or your work, community, your own life that you really know needs attention, where some falling will occur, where you actually have the opportunity to prevent further damage. Okay, finally, where do I have power and how am I using it? Like I said, we all have power somewhere, and the Torah isn't questioning whether or not you do have power. The Torah assumes that you have power somewhere. But now the question is, when you use your power, how do you make someone else feel safe and stronger and more dignified because of the way that you use that power? We have so many opportunities in this world to lift others up or ignore them altogether. And so, as we study this Parsha and we dig deeper, I ask you to use those mitzvot, those 74 mitzvot, as I said, not as singular entities, but rather as what I asked at the beginning, to think about the kind of human being the Torah wants you to be, the kind of human being the Torah wants you to be, and the kinds of human beings the Torah wants you to see. I hope you have a wonderful Shabbat. If you are local, I hope I have a chance to see you here at Sinai Temple. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Bye, everybody.